La superación personal y profesional comienza con tu actitud. Te invitamos a ser parte de una conferencia motivacional o taller de liderazgo impartida por Gerardo Salinas Enríquez, conferencista motivacional de Chicago. Para él, perder la vista a la edad de 13 años no fue una barrera para lograr sus propósitos. En sus conferencias, él te hablará con el corazón, conocimiento y experiencias. Aunque no tiene sentido de la vista, tiene mucha visión. Para mentoría individual, contrataciones en escuelas, iglesias o cualquier evento público, puedes llamar al 773-786-8022. Búscalo en Facebook, YouTube y TikTok como Gerardo Salinas Enríquez. No esperes más, con actitud se logra la superación.
Dimensión Latina FM, tu radio por internet presenta Alas de Amor. Alas de Amor, un programa con enfoque en los niños y jóvenes para la salud y bienestar de ellos y sus familias, conducido por ELSA PRADO. Bienvenidos.
This is ELSA PRADO and welcome to Wings of Love. Today we have Juanita IRIZARRY with us as our guest. Welcome, Juanita. She is a bicultural native with a 30-year career in working with nonprofits, philanthropy, and government. She is founder of Juanita Social Impact Studio. Welcome to Wings of Love, Juanita.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I want to say that I am very impressed because you do have quite the resume when it comes to all the work that you have done over the course of your profession in the past 30 years. You know, the policy that you've been working on, you know, the Hispanic Housing Development Corporation, the Bricker Dyke Redevelopment Corporation, the Resurrection Project, just to name a few. And then all of the powerful advocacy that you have done for two Chicago nonprofits, Latinos United and Friends of the Park. And that's where I met you when you were with Friends of the Park. So I just want to tell our public and our audience that you are quite the trailblazer in Chicago when it comes to doing different things, you know, of working with the community. Mm-hmm. And as such, I guess we can say that right now, you know, running for this position for the Board of Review, we want to let our audience know how important it is for our community when it comes to our property taxes, which are killing some of us just because they've become increasingly high. But I want you to tell us, Juanita, what you propose to do in your candidacy.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much for this opportunity. And I was reflecting and remembering when we've done this before, promoting Earth Day when I worked at Friends of the Parks.
Yes.
And that was particularly in Humboldt Park in that case, which is where I'm from and I've lived most of my life. And I'd like to mention a lot of people know my name from Friends of the Parks because, you know, that was also a role where I took on George Lucas and fought against him being on our lakefront. And I have found in talking to people even about my candidacy for this Board of Review, which I'll say a little bit more about, you know, even if people like or don't like the battle that we took on against George Lucas, they know that I'm a fighter, right? And I'm going to bring that same fight to this particular role. And one of the connections between that fight and this fight is that, in the context of challenging George Lucas, that's a billionaire who wanted to be able to do whatever he wanted to do because he wants to do it, right? And we're going to give him the land for almost free to do whatever he wanted on our precious lakefront. And we're in a moment in time when we need to make sure that we hold the super rich accountable and that they pay their fair share and they don't just get to do whatever they want to do. We're seeing even what that looks like on the federal level as well, right? So in the context of the Board of Review, which is about property taxes, I have taken this on because we're in a moment in time where we're seeing super big discounts being given to the super wealthy so they don't have to pay as much property taxes, right? And the Board of Review is a place where if you've already, you can get an appeal of your taxes at the Board of Appeals, which is one level, and then the Board of Review is that final level that you can go to try to get your property taxes lowered. And I'm running against, one particular commissioner who has a lot of his donations for his candidacy come from his property tax attorneys, who then come and represent their clients before the Board of Review, and they get discounts. And there just seems to be a hookup there that's happening that results in all of us paying more property taxes.
Exactly.
Because the county creates a certain amount. They decide how much money they must bring in order to cover all the bills of the county. And if some people are not paying their fair share, the rest of us have to cover it, right? And so that's one of the big things that is happening to us today.
And it's a huge burden to some people.
Yes.
And as we see, some people are pushed to sell because they no longer can afford, a mortgage payment with that substantial increase in property taxes. But property taxes have been somehow not divided quite equally amongst everybody in certain areas. And that's a problem.
Right. It's a very complicated issue. And there are things that need to be done at the state level to change policy. There's a lot of ways it needs to be addressed, right? I got very interested in property taxes, as weird as that may sound, years ago when I was working at Bickerdike Redevelopment Corporation, which you mentioned, which was a nonprofit affordable housing group that served Westtown, Humboldt Park, and Logan Square. So it's also in the neighborhood I grew up, and I was working there, and we were finding that a lot of seniors, particularly at that time in Wicker Park, which was starting to experience gentrification, they were starting to see a big rise in their bills, and they were starting to get displaced. And we were trying to figure out how we help those families stay in their homes. And, a lot of times we would see, Puerto Ricans and Mexicans who had bought their house a long time ago. Maybe they already paid off the house. Maybe there's a widow, her husband died, and she can't take care of the property on her own. And the property taxes have gone up so high that even though she didn't have a mortgage anymore, the property tax payment was pushing her out, right? And so we got involved with the assessor at the time to start looking at how do we provide senior freeze programs and circuit breaker programs so that if you live in a gentrifying area and your property taxes went up so fast that you just can't handle that change, your income is not going up to...
Especially for people on a fixed income.
That's right. And even myself,
Exactly.
Our home in Humboldt Park was reassessed in the last time around, and our bill went up $500 a month. Now, our escrow payment eventually adjusted back down, and it's not exactly $500 a month now. It's a little bit less than that, but that's a big change in our budget.
It is.
And if it weren't for the fact that my stepdaughter still lives with us as a young adult who's working and is helping to pay our mortgage, we might have had to make different decisions about whether we could handle that. That's a big change, right? And so we can't see that continue to happen, right? And some of that can be addressed by changing this burden shift that's happening at the Board of Review.
Exactly. Could you explain to people exactly just a little bit more how they can go to the Board of Review with this particular issue? Because a lot of people don't know. It's like, okay, well, you're telling me about the Board of Review, but what do they do? And how can I get help from the Board of Review?
Yep. Yes, thank you for asking about that. And I had learned a bit about it myself also when I worked at the Resurrection Project in Pilsen. We did workshops for homeowners or people that wanted to become homeowners. And we were also building single family homes and 2 flats. And so we wanted our new homeowners to be successful in sustaining their homeownership. And we actually had some partners that would come in and teach workshops about property tax appeals, right? And so the first level of appeal is with the assessor's office, right? So the assessor decides how much to value your house at, and then you get a bill that comes actually from the treasurer's office. It's a complicated process, but then you see your bill, and if it seems like it's just out of whack, too high, you can appeal to the assessor's office. That's the first layer. And one of the things that I learned at that time that I think is really important, again, within the context that I've experienced, especially in some of the gentrifying communities, is that, when let's say you bought your house for $200,000, but they just built a $700,000 new house on your block, or a bunch of them, right? And now your property is being valued higher, right? You can actually send pictures in, fill out forms to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't have marble countertops. I don't have a completely renovated house. I have an older home. So my home should not be valued at the same amount as that brand new high-end house, right? So that's one of the levels that you do that. And the assessor does a reassessment every 3 years, and that's when you potentially see a real change then in your property taxes. There's also the Board of Review, which is another level that you can also go, and you have to keep an eye on when your township is open, right? Because they're not all open at the same time. The Board of Review is not open at the same time, but right now is a good opportunity to go to the Board of Review because a lot of people have really gotten shocked with their recent property taxes, and you can take it to the Board of Review. Right. However, again, what's been happening at the Board of Review is only about 1% of residential property owners are getting a discount when they go to the Board of Review. The discounts are going to the super wealthy, big commercial businesses, right? And that's, again, one of the reasons why it's time for a change at the Board of Review, because they seem to think that they need to make sure they keep the businesses happy instead of keeping the residents happy, right? Now, I think small businesses are important too. There's a difference between the uber wealthy, super big corporate businesses and small businesses who also need, help.
Right.
But we need to not be displacing families and renters, because renters also bear the burden, of the property taxes, not just the owner family, but the renter families, when we see these changes. But going to the Board of Review is another place to go to try to get lower taxes.
That's excellent. And like I said, a lot of people miss the second part.
Yes.
Many people know, oh, well, I am getting an exemption, blah, blah, blah. But you made a really important point, Yeah. What if your house isn't the luxury mini mansion on the block?
Correct.
Or what if your house isn't the brick house? Maybe you have a frame home. It's not going to be the same price if you were to sell it in the market.
Right.
If it doesn't have some of these upgrades or some of these other things that are maybe newer, and you have a much older home, or it hasn't been renovated, all these details do matter when it comes to your property taxes.
Yes. And I've heard the assessor talk about this, and he said that is actually important information that he needs, because he may not have that information anywhere, right?
Right.
So it's important to take a look at how other properties on your block have been assessed, and the homes that look more like yours and have features more like yours. And then, you can appeal it on your own. Some people hire a property tax lawyer to do it. That also can, help with your success. But the real challenge, I think, is when the property tax lawyers that are primarily serving the super wealthy get the discounts and the rest of us don't. That's where the real problem comes in.
Exactly. What do you want to do if you become the elect board of review person that will be in that role, what do you what could you tell our community? What could you explain to them that needs to be done, and you are the person that is going to make it happen?
Yep. Well, I really think, first of all, we have to get pay to play politics out, and we just have to have integrity and fairness, right? So all of our property tax reviews, appeal processes should happen with full integrity and not based on who you know or don't know, right? Or who your property tax lawyer made a commitment, a contribution to. There's some areas in which the Board of Review is not transparent, and adding transparency would help with that. So for example, right now, when you get your property tax bill from the assessor, you can go to the assessor's website and you can see how they came to that assessment level, right? It's complicated, it's hard to understand, but once you figure those things out, it's available to you, right? But at the Board of Review level, they keep that information much more behind the scenes so that you cannot tell how they came to that judgment of your property's worth, right? And that allows them to act in secrecy in giving these discounts to the super wealthy, right? So all of that needs to become much more transparent. We need to put it all online so it's accountable to the public. Everyone can see what's happening there, right? And that will be one thing that pressures a more fair and just assessment process. Also, there needs to be just more professionalism. One of the things I've understood is that they are not using all of the available data in terms of the assessment process at that review stage, right? There's no reason not to use all of the available data. We want to do the most professional, most thorough job that we can in determining the value of these properties, right?
Exactly.
And then there's some modernization things that the Board of Review is very behind on. The county has been doing a lot of modernization in terms of their IT, their computers and systems, and not all the departments have been doing it at the same rate. The Board of Review is particularly behind. And so getting them up to, the highest standards possible in terms of their technology and all the systems would also help them be much more efficient and proficient. And we want to make sure that that's happening. I also know that there is a big challenge right now in that there has not been finalization of a new contract with the union. And there's a lot of struggle there that I would want to see finalized and make sure that the workers have what they need in order to do their jobs well, and that they are serving us well because they are serving the public. And getting that contract finalized in a way that's also fair to everyone involved would be really important.
Oh, definitely. I mean, these are all these, it might seem little, right, but it's the thing that really adds up at the end of the day. So it's really important that if people question their tax bill, that they actually look into it.
Yeah.
Don't just accept it. I mean, it's one of the things that is so important. If they see, wow, we're getting a boatload of appeals, there's a reason why it's happening.
That's right. And, if they're going to ask us as a city and a county and a society to pay more taxes, we want to know that they're being used well, right? We want to know that the government is working for us, so we should be as transparent as possible so people can understand this is what this stuff means, and that we're being fair and functioning with integrity.
What would be like the initial steps for you if you take on this role?
Yeah. Well, certainly there's staff to get to know and to understand how the office is working day to day. Thankfully, I've been happy to be receiving tutoring from folks who've worked there and to understand how all of those processes work. And again, to hopefully be able to intervene and make sure that their contract is finalized so that, the working environment is not full of being fraught with the tension of trying to get a contract completed that has not been completed for a long time. Everybody should experience fairness. And then I want to add a lot more outreach so that we can go out in the community and help people understand how these tax processes work, right? Like we've talked about. Sometimes when you go and meet with folks, they also don't have some of the exemptions they could have. the senior exemption,
right.
the homestead exemption. So even
They're
just
missing out on discounts that
Right.
they're not
Right.
aware of, all because they haven't really looked into it.
Right. And, it's easy to not know about how all of these things work. And so I think it's really important that, especially in communities that are not English dominant or that are not likely to have access because of income or other to property tax attorney help, we really need to have more workshops out in the community in partnerships with nonprofits and whoever we can work together with to get more information out into the community. That also includes looking at the different ways we can communicate this information within different county offices, because again, the tax process touches a bunch of different departments, right?
Definitely.
And so who could be sending out mailings to people to make sure that they know how all of this works, and how do we help with that from the Board of Review space. Also, interestingly, as I have been going around and talking to folks, I've been talking to state representatives who are very interested in how we look at state policy that might change how we do our property tax policy. Illinois is very over-dependent. Well, put it this way. We don't pay much Illinois state taxes into the education system. And since there's not a lot of state money going into the education system, we have to put more property tax dollars there. So if we can address some of those things in terms of changing how the state funds education, we could also address some of the property tax issues. Now, that is not specific role of the Board of Review, but because I happen to be this policy wonk who's worked in affordable housing and likes advocacy and policy and has developed a lot of relationships over the years with lawmakers and different folks in different levels of government, I would, for fun, I do this for fun anyway, go talk to legislators and the folks that have been working on property tax reform issues.
Right.
To try to figure out how we help with that. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't need a Board of Review to go get our taxes appealed, because it was already working at the other levels, right? And it didn't have to come all the way up to.
It doesn't need a second level, right? Or a second tier of. It's
another layer of government, right?
Right.
Now, to a degree, the Board of Review is also there to be a check and balance to the assessor's office, right? So it has a value there. But Cook County really does all of this differently than a lot of other places around the country. So I'm also just very interested in studying and learning ways that we could maybe make it more efficient, not have layers where we don't have to have layers, save money, and hopefully all of us don't have to keep seeing our property taxes go up so much.
Right. I know that we have been hearing for years that they have proposed and talked about possibly not taxing seniors after a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that could still become something that could happen?
Yeah, I just got off another webinar that folks were organizing around property tax reform, and they harkened back to some task forces that were convened 5 years ago, talking about all these different tax issues to bring relief. And I think people are excited about renewed conversations about different ways that we might be able to bring relief to folks. And again, looking at where the different levers of government that have to be pulled to make those changes, whether it's state level policy, whether it's city or county level policy. And I think one of the other things that I particularly see the opportunity is the Board of Review working with the assessor, mm-hmm. and trying to figure out what other things can be fixed. Like, I continue to bring up the issue of gentrification, and how much our taxes go up so fast. It's so important because I heard the assessor say recently that there were properties in Chicago that actually, and some of them may have also been in other parts of the county, that the value of the property, that his assessment of them was actually that the value was lower, but their taxes still went up. Their property taxes mm-hmm. still went up because of that shift off of the super wealthy onto the rest of us, right?
Right,
so
right.
that's one of the issues. But then also with gentrification, as the market goes up in our neighborhoods, some people say, well, that's a good thing for us, right? Our property is worth more, right? So we should just be happy because we can sell our house for more. But I don't want to be destabilized and forced to move if I don't feel like moving, right?
Right.
In the case of my parents, they lived in the same few square block area for most of 50 years. And that meant they had their church down the street, the people that they might go play bingo with, the people they had their cafecito with, the different kids that they mentored over the years. And so when they're forced to move, which there was for a short period where they had to move a few miles west and they got disconnected from everybody they knew and all their support systems, then that puts another burden on our social services systems and other, right? So I'm just very passionate about working with the assessor's office around how do we look at this issue of why do our property taxes go up so fast in areas where there's gentrification?
Right.
So I want to be in dialogue with other policymakers and lawmakers to work on that, because that's an issue that's very close to my heart.
Yeah, no, and I love that you're mentioning the big major points of a situation that is impacting all of our families and a big, huge part of our community, which a lot of times is underserved, as you already know.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And when we have to move away from the services that we already know and have, and then we have to travel a long distance to get back to the old neighborhood where we love people. And, some people, sometimes we move because we wanted to move to a new neighborhood, right? People have choices. And if they want to do that, that's one thing. But if they're forced because of these massive skyrocketing property taxes, it's a whole other issue.
Right.
And it's a destabilizing thing. So I think people should have, stay in the schools where their kids are if they want to not have to be pushed out.
Exactly. That's absolutely correct. And, not only that, help people stay in their properties, not just like temporarily, but like you said, like your if your parents were there for 50 years or that time frame, you want to be able to say, okay, this is a home I'll be in for a while.
Yes, that's right. And we should have choices. People have different ways they like to live. Some people want to move out, to their view of the American dream, which may not be where they are now, and that's up to people.
Right. Exactly.
But it's this thing where this shockingly large bill that you can't pay, all of a sudden makes you think, I thought I was establishing a home in a community here, and now I have to find another place to go. And that is not good.
And I mean, I think people were already stressed out because they weren't sending the bill out, and then they came out late,
Right.
And put more pressure on the community, because now they're like, okay, well, we're waiting for the tax bill, but now it's getting postponed. And now what is the increase that's going to be on it? Because now people are going to get hit like by surprise.
That's right. I think there's an unusual amount of attention on the issue right now, which kind of coincides with the timing of my campaign. So it's a great time to talk about it, right? People are, stressed about how close together the two bill payments are, right? And then they were so much larger than expected. And it's a time when we as a community and as a country are dealing with so many other stresses. It's a lot to bear, right? And so I like to try to fix the things we may be able to do a little something about while we continue to, struggle with the direction of our country and, being pulled apart in so many, a scary, dynamics these days.
It is. It's worldwide.
Yes.
For our whole entire country right now, it's worldwide. So it's a very tumultuous time for a lot of people. We had a very, very difficult 2025.
Yes, we did.
I think all of us here were entering 2026, and we're all, I think, at that point where we just need a sense of relief somewhere, somehow.
That's right.
That things settle down.
That's right. Absolutely. And how important is it right now for people to have the stability in their home? Even their homes are not sacred. We've seen the battering rams that are being used to break into people's houses in Minnesota. So even that is not enough. But to be able to know that you're not going to be displaced from your home in the midst of all of these things is important as well.
It is. Yeah. Now, where can people, do you have a number, like just a general contact number for those people that have heard today's program and they're like, you know what, where can I call or how can I reach?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do would be go to my website. It has more information about me and the issues that we're dealing with. And it's just Juanita Irizarry .com. Just that's my name and .com, right? Okay. So they can find it there. They can find an email address to contact there. And yeah, we would love to, connect with people who are interested in these issues. And getting the word out about this campaign. And I think it's really important. I will say that one of the reasons I've also gotten so involved in politics in Chicago over the years, I ran for alderman years ago in Humboldt Park. I've worked on a lot of campaigns, is because I think that in order to have a government that works for us, we have to have people working in government and politicians who are going to, do things with integrity.
Right.
And, in the process of getting on the ballot, we found that my opponent was willing to cheat to get on the ballot. And I think if you're going to cheat to get on the ballot, then you're going to cheat in the way that you do your work. Right.
Exactly.
And so it's time for a good government in every place that we can try to make that happen.
Right. Right. It offsets some of the bad spots.
That's right. That's right. There's always more to clean up. There's always more issues to tackle, but where we can make a difference. And I think this is a particular opportunity because there's so much attention to this otherwise very obscure role called the Board of Review. So
exactly.
I'm happy to bring my fighting spirit to it and, do it for public service and, for the common good.
So with that said, we're going to have to close, but I believe that the most important points have been said at this point. So
March 17th election, everybody needs to vote who can vote. So
save the date, make sure you do come out and make it happen. I think it's crucial right now that people's voices be heard and that you cast your vote. So
our elections hopefully still matter.
Yes. We have to make them matter, and we have to still, make the effort. We cannot give up. We cannot throw the towel in or anything like that. So thank you so much, Juanita, for your time today. I know you're very busy, but, you're here. And that matters a lot. You're here for the people of Chicago. You're here for the people, of the community that are relying on, people that really want to do the job.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So to all of our audience and everybody that's been with us, thank you. Many blessings to you in this new year of 2026. And thank you, Juanita. Much success with this campaign, and to everybody that has heard, you heard it here first, and Wings of Love, and hopefully, you will look into your tax bills and then decide, you're getting informed right now, and that's the main thing. When you go vote, you're making an informed choice, and you're getting information straight from the candidate here. So thank you, Juanita, once again. And to everybody, much blessings and have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Juanita.